Ladies and gentlemen, life is a stage and we all play our parts. But every now and then you meet someone who wants to hog the spotlight, take all the applause, and leave you in the shadows. A narcissist, they thrive on your attention, your energy, your admiration. But what if I told you that you have the power to flip the script? That you don't have to let their ego define your stage? Let's talk about how to take back control. Narcissists thrive on attention, often demanding the spotlight in every room they enter. Their sense of self-worth is intricately tied to external validation, which they seek relentlessly from others. Ignoring them, simply withholding your attention and focus, can be a profoundly unsettling experience for them. This act, though subtle, strikes at the very core of their inflated self-image. When you choose to ignore a narcissist, it's not just an act of silence, it's a statement. It says, I see through your need for control, and I refuse to participate in your game. Narcissists feed on reactions, whether positive or negative. They enjoy being praised, but they'll also take satisfaction in provoking anger, frustration, or even sadness. For them, any reaction confirms their significance. By ignoring them, you deprive them of this validation. You deny them the fuel that sustains their ego. It's important to recognize that ignoring a narcissist doesn't always mean physically walking away or cutting off all contact, though in some cases that may be necessary. It often means refusing to engage in their attempts to manipulate or provoke you. When they try to bait you with inflammatory comments, criticism disguised as concern, or exaggerated displays of emotion, you maintain your composure. You respond with neutrality, or better yet, you don't respond at all. This refusal to engage disrupts their strategy. It leaves them grasping for the control they so desperately crave. Ignoring a narcissist can also create a mirror for their insecurities. When their attempts to elicit attention fail, they are forced to confront the uncomfortable reality that they are not as powerful or important as they imagine. This can trigger a range of reactions, from desperate attempts to regain control to outright hostility. They may lash out, escalate their behavior, or even resort to playing the victim to draw you back in. Recognizing this pattern is crucial because it underscores the effectiveness of your decision to ignore them. Their heightened reaction reveals just how much they rely on your attention to maintain their sense of superiority. Over time, consistent disregard for their manipulative tactics can lead to a shift in the dynamic. They begin to realize that you are not a source of validation for them. This doesn't mean they'll stop trying. In fact, some narcissists may increase their efforts to regain your attention. But with persistence and a clear understanding of their behavior, you can break the cycle. You take back control of your energy and your emotional space. Ignoring a narcissist is not about revenge or punishment. It's about protecting your peace and preserving your self-worth. It's about refusing to allow their insecurities to dictate your responses or overshadow your life. When you ignore a narcissist, you empower yourself. You remind them and yourself that your attention is a gift, not an obligation. And in doing so, you take a significant step toward reclaiming your power. Setting boundaries is one of the most powerful ways to protect yourself when dealing with a narcissist. Boundaries are more than just limits, they are declarations of self-respect and self-worth. To a narcissist, boundaries are like walls that keep them from freely accessing your emotions, your time, and your energy. They hate boundaries because these limits frustrate their need to control and manipulate situations and people. When you set a clear and firm boundary, you communicate a simple but profound message. I will not allow you to overstep. Narcissists thrive on crossing lines, whether it's invading your personal space, dominating conversations, or imposing their will on your decisions. Boundaries disrupt this pattern. They force the narcissist to recognize that their usual tactics won't work with you. This realization is deeply unsettling for them because their sense of power is often tied to their ability to control others. Establishing boundaries with a narcissist requires clarity and consistency. You must articulate your limits in a way that leaves no room for misunderstanding. For example, if they constantly interrupt your time with others or demand immediate attention, you might say, I'm not available right now, we can talk later. It's important to deliver this message calmly but firmly, without anger or frustration. because any emotional response can be used against you. Narcissists often test your resolve, pushing to see if you'll cave under pressure. Consistency is key. If you waver or backtrack, they'll perceive it as an opportunity to regain control. Boundaries also shine a light on a narcissist's behavior, something they work hard to keep hidden. When you enforce a boundary, you expose their tendency to overstep or manipulate. This forces them to either respect your limits in action that challenges their ego or risk losing access to you entirely. Both options are uncomfortable for a narcissist, which is why they often react negatively to boundaries. They may try to guilt you, manipulate you emotionally, or escalate their behavior to break down your resolve. Understanding this predictable response can help you stay firm. The beauty of boundaries is that they aren't just defensive tools, they're also acts of self-empowerment. By setting and maintaining boundaries, you reclaim control over your life. You demonstrate to yourself and others that you value your well-being enough to protect it. This self-respect is something a narcissist cannot easily undermine, no matter how much they try. Over time, boundaries change the dynamic between you and the narcissist. They come to realize that you are not easily swayed, manipulated, or controlled. While this may not change their fundamental nature, it will limit their ability to harm you. More importantly, it will free you from the exhausting cycle of trying to accommodate someone who thrives on pushing past your limits. Setting boundaries is not about creating distance out of anger or resentment. It's about safeguarding your peace, your time, and your emotional health. It's about recognizing your own worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it. When you set boundaries, you take a stand for yourself, and that is something no narcissist can take away. Narcissists have a deeply fragile sense of self hidden beneath their outward confidence and charm. Their self-image is meticulously constructed like a house of cards, and they will go to great lengths to protect it. Criticism, even when constructive or well-intentioned, is perceived as a direct threat to this carefully maintained facade. They despise being criticized because it forces them to confront vulnerabilities they would rather ignore or deny. To understand why criticism is so unsettling for a narcissist, it's essential to recognize the role of their ego. Narcissists build their identity around an inflated sense of superiority and perfection. They need to believe they are smarter, more talented, or more attractive than others, and they expect the world to validate this belief. When someone offers criticism, no matter how gentle, it challenges this illusion of invincibility. For a narcissist, this isn't just uncomfortable, it's intolerable. The reaction to criticism often reveals the depth of their insecurity. Some narcissists respond with anger or hostility, attempting to intimidate the person offering feedback. This reaction, often called narcissistic rage, is a defense mechanism designed to deflect attention away from their perceived flaws. By shifting the focus onto the critic, they avoid confronting the uncomfortable truth about themselves. Others may adopt a more passive-aggressive approach, sulking, playing the victim, or using subtle manipulations to regain the upper hand. In either case, the goal is the same: to protect their ego at all costs. What makes criticism particularly challenging for narcissists is that they often lack the tools to process it constructively. For most people, criticism can be a valuable opportunity for growth and self-improvement. It requires humility and introspection to acknowledge mistakes or areas for improvement, qualities that narcissists generally struggle with. Instead of viewing criticism as a pathway to growth, they see it as an attack on their character. This aversion to criticism can create a cycle of denial and stagnation. By refusing to acknowledge their shortcomings, narcissists miss opportunities to learn and evolve. Their relationships often suffer as well. Those around them may feel unheard, dismissed, or punished for offering honest feedback, leading to strained connections and unmet emotional needs. Navigating criticism with a narcissist requires tact and careful consideration. Direct confrontation often backfires, leading to defensive or retaliatory behavior. Instead, framing feedback in a way that aligns with their need for validation can sometimes be more effective. For instance, instead of pointing out a flaw outright, you might phrase it as a suggestion for improvement that highlights their potential for greatness. This approach, while not always foolproof, can reduce resistance and open the door to meaningful dialogue. Ultimately, criticism reveals a key vulnerability in narcissists: their inability to reconcile their self-image with reality. While this can be frustrating for those who interact with them, it also highlights the deep insecurity at the heart of their behavior. Understanding this dynamic can help you approach interactions with empathy and clarity, while also protecting your own boundaries and emotional well-being. It's not provided. Narcissists thrive on admiration, often seeing it as the lifeblood that sustains their self-worth. They crave constant recognition and praise, using it to reinforce their carefully curated self-image. This relentless need for validation creates a dynamic where the narcissist demands admiration from those around them, often without giving anything meaningful in return. When that admiration is withheld, it deflates their ego and leaves them struggling to maintain their sense of superiority. A narcissist's sense of self is not built on a foundation of genuine confidence or self-esteem. Rather, it relies heavily on external validation. They need others to reflect back an image of perfection, intelligence, or greatness to feel secure in their identity. This makes them highly dependent on the opinions of others, and they often go to great lengths to elicit admiration. Whether it's through charm, manipulation, or grand displays of success, their ultimate goal is to ensure that people see them in the way they want to be seen. When admiration is not forthcoming, it creates a void that the narcissist struggles to fill. The lack of praise forces them to confront the possibility that they are not as exceptional as they believe themselves to be. This is a deeply unsettling experience for them, as it threatens the core of their self-image. Without the external validation they rely on, their fragile sense of self begins to crack, exposing the insecurities they work so hard to hide. The reaction to this lack of admiration can vary, but it often involves a desperate attempt to regain the attention and praise they feel entitled to. Some narcissists may try to manipulate the situation, turning on their charm or exaggerating their achievements to draw admiration from others. Others might lash out, blaming those around them for failing to recognize their worth. This behavior stems from their inability to process the absence of admiration in a healthy way. They perceive it as a rejection, which triggers feelings of shame or inadequacy that they cannot tolerate. Over time, a consistent lack of admiration can lead to frustration and even resentment on the part of the narcissist. They may withdraw, sulk, or become increasingly hostile, especially if they feel that someone is deliberately withholding the praise they desire. This reaction can strain relationships as those around the narcissist grow weary of the constant need for validation and the emotional fallout that occurs when it's not provided. For those dealing with a narcissist, understanding their reliance on admiration is essential. Withholding excessive praise doesn't mean being unkind or dismissive. Rather, it's about maintaining a healthy balance and not enabling their inflated sense of entitlement. By refusing to feed their constant need for admiration, you encourage them to look inward for self-validation, a challenging but necessary step for their growth. Ultimately, the lack of admiration reveals the underlying fragility of the narcissist's ego. While they project an image of confidence and superiority, their need for external validation betrays their deep-seated insecurities. Recognizing this dynamic can help you navigate interactions with them more effectively, while also protecting your own emotional energy. Accountability is kryptonite for narcissists. Their sense of superiority depends on a narrative in which they are always right, always the victim, or always the hero. Confronting them with the truth about their actions dismantles this carefully constructed image, forcing them to face a reality they work tirelessly to avoid. Being held accountable disrupts their control, challenges their inflated self-perception, and exposes their vulnerabilities, making it one of the most effective ways to disrupt their behavior. At the heart of the narcissist's aversion to accountability lies their inability to accept flaws or mistakes. For most people, taking responsibility is a natural part of growth and learning, but for a narcissist, it feels like a threat to their identity. They often see accountability as an attack rather than an opportunity for reflection or improvement. This is because admitting fault conflicts with their need to maintain an image of perfection and superiority. When confronted with their actions, narcissists typically react in one of two ways: deflection or denial. They might shift blame onto someone else, painting themselves as the victim of circumstances or the incompetence of others. Alternatively, they may outright deny the event or its significance, refusing to acknowledge their role in it. Both responses serve the same purpose: to avoid taking responsibility. This refusal to be accountable is not just frustrating for those around them, it's a deliberate tactic to maintain control and avoid feelings of shame or inadequacy. Holding a narcissist accountable requires persistence and clarity. It's important to approach the situation with facts and specifics, as vague accusations are easily dismissed or twisted. For example, rather than saying "you're always inconsiderate," a more effective approach would be, "When you ignored my request yesterday, it made me feel disrespected." This forces them to confront a concrete action rather than retreat into generalized denials. It's equally crucial to remain calm and composed during these confrontations. Narcissists often attempt to provoke emotional reactions, as they can then use your response to divert attention away from the issue at hand. By maintaining your composure, you deny them the opportunity to shift focus and ensure the conversation remains centered on their behavior. While holding a narcissist accountable is essential for establishing boundaries and maintaining self-respect, it's important to recognize that they are unlikely to respond with genuine remorse or self-awareness. In many cases, their response may include anger, defensiveness, or even attempts to retaliate. This reaction is a reflection of their discomfort and insecurity, not a measure of your effectiveness. The power of accountability lies in its ability to disrupt the narcissist's narrative. It forces them to face the consequences of their actions, even if only momentarily, and prevents them from continuing unchecked. More importantly, it empowers you to assert your truth and protect your emotional well-being. By confronting a narcissist with the reality of their behavior, you take a stand not only for yourself, but also for the principles of honesty and integrity which they so often seek to undermine. Control is the lifeblood of a narcissist's existence. Their sense of power and superiority hinges on their ability to manipulate situations and people to serve their needs. Whether it's through charm, coercion, or deceit, they are skilled at orchestrating interactions to ensure the outcomes favor them. When that control is taken away, it destabilizes their carefully constructed world, leaving them feeling powerless and exposed. This loss of control is something they dread, as it forces them to confront their vulnerabilities and lack of genuine authority. Narcissists often use control as a way to maintain dominance in their relationships. They may dictate the terms of conversation, steer decisions to benefit themselves, or manipulate emotions to keep others dependent on them. This control allows them to project an image of strength and superiority while avoiding feelings of inadequacy or failure. To them, losing control is synonymous with losing their identity, as their self-worth is tied to their ability to influence and dominate. When a narcissist begins to lose control, their reactions can be intense and unpredictable. They may escalate their tactics, resorting to manipulation, guilt-tripping, or even outright aggression to regain their perceived power. This behavior is not just a response to the immediate situation, it's a desperate attempt to reassert their dominance and avoid the discomfort of feeling powerless. Their inability to adapt to situations where they are not in control highlights the fragility of their self-esteem. Taking away a narcissist's control starts with recognizing their tactics and refusing to engage. This can involve setting firm boundaries, refusing to be manipulated, or calmly but assertively standing your ground. For example, if a narcissist tries to dominate a conversation by interrupting or dismissing your perspective, you can calmly state, "I'm not finished speaking yet," and continue without allowing their behavior to derail you. By not reacting emotionally or yielding to their pressure, you undermine their ability to manipulate the situation. It's important to note that removing a narcissist's control doesn't necessarily mean confronting them head-on. In many cases, subtle shifts in your behavior are more effective. For instance, refusing to provide the emotional responses they seek, such as anger or validation, denies them the satisfaction of controlling your feelings. Over time, this consistent resistance weakens their hold on you and forces them to reevaluate their approach. The loss of control is deeply unsettling for a narcissist because it exposes the limitations of their influence. Without the ability to manipulate others, they are left to confront their own insecurities and shortcomings, realities they work tirelessly to avoid. While this can lead to increased attempts to reassert dominance, it also creates an opportunity for those around them to reclaim their autonomy. By taking away a narcissist's control, you reclaim your own power and set the stage for healthier interactions. This doesn't mean you can change their fundamental nature, but it does mean you can protect yourself from their manipulative tactics. In doing so, you reinforce your self-worth and establish a dynamic in which their control no longer dictates your life. The narcissist's world revolves around maintaining control, feeding their ego, and protecting their fragile self-image. They craft a facade of superiority and dominance to mask deep-seated insecurities, and they rely on external validation to sustain their sense of self-worth. However, when faced with strategies that disrupt their carefully constructed persona, they are forced to confront a reality they work tirelessly to avoid. Understanding the things that make a narcissist miserable is not about seeking revenge, but about reclaiming your own power, peace, and emotional well-being. Ignoring them denies their relentless hunger for attention. They thrive on reactions, positive or negative, and ignoring them sends a powerful message: you will not be manipulated into playing their game. It deprives them of the fuel that sustains their ego and forces them to confront the emptiness they feel without constant validation. This simple act of withholding your attention can disrupt their control and empower you to set the tone of your interactions. Setting boundaries is another vital tool. Clear, firm boundaries send a message of self-respect and strength. Narcissists hate boundaries because they limit their ability to manipulate and dominate, challenging their need for control. By consistently enforcing boundaries, you demonstrate that your emotional well-being is not up for negotiation. Over time, this can shift the power dynamic, limiting their influence over you while reinforcing your own sense of agency. Criticism, constructive or otherwise, is kryptonite for narcissists. It chips away at their carefully crafted image of perfection, forcing them to confront flaws they'd rather deny. While they often react with anger, denial, or deflection, criticism exposes their vulnerability and their inability to process feedback constructively. This aversion to accountability underscores the fragility of their ego and their deep fear of being seen as anything less than ideal. A lack of admiration further destabilizes their sense of self. Narcissists crave praise as a lifeline to reinforce their exaggerated self-image. When admiration is withheld, they are left grappling with the discomfort of feeling insignificant. This absence of validation forces them to face a reality in which they are not the center of attention, a reality they desperately seek to avoid. Denying them this admiration empowers you to protect your energy while challenging their dependence on external approval. Holding them accountable is another way to confront their behavior. Narcissists fear accountability because it disrupts their control and forces them to face the truth of their actions. While their responses may range from anger to manipulation, standing firm and holding them responsible ensures they can no longer evade the consequences of their behavior. This not only empowers you, but also sets the stage for healthier dynamics, even if it doesn't change their core nature. Finally, stripping away their ability to control others is perhaps the most impactful way to disrupt a narcissist. Control is the foundation of their sense of superiority, and without it, they feel powerless. By recognizing and resisting their manipulative tactics, you reclaim your autonomy and dismantle their influence over your life. This loss of control forces them to confront their limitations, creating an opportunity for growth not necessarily for them, but for you. In understanding these dynamics, the goal is not to punish the narcissist, but to protect your own emotional health and reclaim your sense of self. Narcissists thrive on taking power from others, but by employing these strategies, you can interrupt that cycle and regain control over your life. Remember, your worth is not determined by how much you can please or appease someone who seeks to dominate and manipulate. By prioritizing your peace, setting boundaries, and refusing to play into their games, you take a stand for your own dignity and strength. Ultimately, dealing with a narcissist is not about changing them, It's about changing how you interact with them. It's about empowering yourself with knowledge, resilience, and the tools to navigate their behavior without losing sight of your own needs and values. You have the power to reclaim your life, to set the terms of your relationships, and to protect your peace. And in doing so, you ensure that no one, not even a narcissist, can diminish your light or control your destiny. So what does this mean for you? It means you have the power to reclaim your narrative. You're not here to be someone else's mirror or pedestal. You're here to shine your own light. A narcissist can't stand that, but guess what? That's not your problem. Keep your peace, guard your energy, and remember your worth is not up for debate. Thank you.